A new Metroidvania was released this week. Elderand is a side-scrolling action game that fulfills many of the criteria that signify a typical Metroidvania. With secret rooms and a massive map, exploration is the focus, but on the way you find a lot of items that help you against enemies and bosses. Now the question is whether this game offers something new to an already well-exploited genre. In this review we check out how Elderand is perceived on the Nintendo Switch and whether it is worth buying. The price? It's on sale for $17. This game takes place in a fantasy-inspired world where man's search for wealth has had unforeseen consequences. Much of the narration is experienced through cutscenes, but usually via notes that are scattered throughout the game. These notes describe people's destinies, which usually have a horrible or dark outcome. The world can be described as a place completely permeated with horror. There is talk of cults, people being kept as slaves, but also of cannibalism and such. And you get to experience part of it in a pixelated form. There is also a main storyline that offers some interesting twists and turns. But despite this hellhole, I have to say that the world and all events are described in a captivating way. The game is quite large. This is because it has a non-linear design. Well, with limitations. I noticed that you can discover new worlds and explore some places, but after a while it stops because you need some special item to progress, and usually you have to kill some boss to get the item you need, so there are limitations even though the game encourages you to explore. Sometimes you find transparent walls that lead to a secret, or you choose another path that takes you to some treasure. This goes along with what I perceive to be a typical Metroidvania. Even the map has the classic design we often recognize from the genre. Each world is color-coded and important places are highlighted. In addition, it follows the classic pattern of having to study the map from time to time to discover possible passages. Because sometimes it feels like you're stuck and you have to think carefully about where you have been and if you missed a plateau or road that could lead you further. It can border on the cryptic, but it's also part of the charm that you're forced to explore in order to open up new areas. At the beginning of the game, there is the possibility to customize your character. You can choose hairstyle, hair color and skin color, and this raises some question marks. It feels like there are a lot of options missing and that you're only scratching the surface. I'm not talking about the possible boob slider, but it would be nice if there were more options. For example, being able to choose the gender or set the length and thickness, and why such odd hair colors. Black, white, brown and orange. Basically, it's nice to be able to customize your hero, but it would have been cool if more options were available. Now let's discuss one of the game's big problems. It's not possible to customize the control. In the menu you can choose the language, set the sound levels and if you want to play with vibrations, but tinkering with the control is unfortunately not possible, and over time you'll learn many different techniques that sometimes feel awkward to use. For example, you block with ZR and dash with A, something that in my world feels backwards, and I would have preferred to have a different approach. Personally, I would have liked to switch positions, but it's not possible. In addition, you learn a technique where you use a grapple hook. It's quite awkward to use as you have to activate special hooks scattered throughout the game, but sometimes the hooks are disabled because they respawn depending on the distance. If you are a millimeter away, the hook is not activated. This is especially frustrating if you are in the air and instead of grabbing a hook, you fall to the ground, perhaps to a certain death. Otherwise, we recognize many techniques. You can learn to double jump, which feels perfectly fine. You can get an overview by scrolling down and ducking to avoid potential dangers. In addition, you can use both melee weapons, bows and staves, so there is a lot of variation. Along the levels you also find useful rings that can boost you in different ways, plus they can give you unique skills. This ring is special because it spawns saw blades when dashing. You can also equip your hero with armor and shields. Which brings us to stats. Both the weapons and armor come with stats that strengthen your character in different ways. There are 4 main stats to consider: vitality, strength, dexterity and wisdom. Then there are 4 substats that are affected by any of the 4 attributes. For example, attack and critical chance. Stats can be found on both rings, armor and weapons, but you also get stats when you level up. The points can be placed in any of the 4 fields, which means that you can create a character to your liking. For example, if you want to be good with swords, you should put a lot of points in the strength box. This means that there is a certain freedom in how you can play. You can choose to boost your ranged abilities and become stronger with the bow, but from my tests, it seems that the sword is significantly stronger than any ranged weapon. There are also tons of enemies and bosses in the game. When it comes to the bosses, I have to say that the developers did a good job. The difficulty curve is even and you risk dying if you don't pay attention to the enemy's abilities. The bosses also enter different phases depending on how much health they have left, so I find a lot of bosses to be challenging and may require you to try multiple times until you understand how they are designed. Elderand is a game that in many ways fulfills the requirements of what can be considered a Metroidvania. Exploration is a central part of the game, but character development is also important to feel like there is a progression. What I unfortunately think is a bit of a shame is that you cannot adjust the control to your liking. You have to get used to what is given. When it comes to performance, it's a mixed bag. For the most part, everything flows well, but in some zones the game suffers from stuttering, which I find somewhat annoying. But overall, this is a well-developed Metroidvania that offers good challenges, but without revolutionizing the genre in any way. Please subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a good day. See you!